All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to session 5. Today we're talking about long form content, and we brought our favorite long form content AI professional, Julia McCoy. She's a 9-time author. I always say 6, but I guess it's 9-time author, AI convert after giving a rousing speech about how AI will never be anything compared to human writers back in December. And now she's one of the biggest AI advocates I know, maybe the biggest, I would have to say. All right, Michelle, Julia, go ahead and take it away and teach us some stuff.
Awesome. Well, just going back to our chat earlier, it looks like James wrote a book in 10 minutes over the weekend. So there's that, that James I did that, nothing. Like it was nothing. So shout out to James. That's amazing. And Kevin referenced the Twitter feed around ChatGPT becoming Hustle GPT. I loved that. I don't know if you all saw it, but basically it was a challenge where someone was like, I will ask ChatGPT to help me become rich. Here's a starting budget. And whatever ChatGPT said to do, they were doing. So it was really good to follow. I thought it was a great use case. So anyway, let's get into it, like Mark said. And I will go ahead and share my screen. Can you see it? Thumbs up if you can. Awesome. Very cool. Let me go full screen so we get rid of the annoying bars around it. Okay, there we go. So like Mark was saying, this is all about long form content, which is something I've been doing for the past 10 years. Every business I built was through long form content. It was through the blog, in part because I'm a mom. I didn't want to get on video. I didn't want a podcast. I just wanted to do the lowest entry marketing I could. And then it turned into something incredible. The blog built everything. It was a 7-figure income stream. It landed an exit for me. Like so many opportunities have come from long form content, and we did it in my writing agency for businesses in every niche. We saw it work. So where we're at today, which Mark was referencing, I used to say that AI cannot replace the human writer. Well, the human writer is definitely going to have a different role because sitting down at your desk, drumming up thousands of words of content, that's obsolete. You literally don't need to do that anymore. So the role of the writer is significantly changing because of what AI is capable of. So when I studied this over the last 3 months, really, I've been super in depth in it, joined an AI writing tool in January as their marketing VP. So this is my life. We have James here. So I know it's his life too. So AI is really now 5 to 25 times faster. And I would argue in many ways better than any human writer on the planet. And I'm still pinching myself that I'm even saying that. What? It's crazy. I can't believe we're here. So what I see is the opportunity is that rough draft phase that can be completely replaced with AI. You really can open AI, make it your writer, and make that the origination point of your content. So Capterra did a study in 2022 all around AI, and the findings were pretty mind-blowing. I didn't know this at first, that this many marketers actually agree on AI, that it should be a priority, that it's the key to the future of marketing. ChatGPT itself, maybe you guys are already aware, it was the fastest adapted technology in the world. So that kind of blew my mind as well. We're definitely in new times. We're not going to ever go backwards from here. The human writer isn't ever going to replace AI, so we're in a shift that will affect the rest of the world for the rest of the time. And over 80% of marketers are saying that AI generated content is as good as human generated. And it's not that it's going to replace the writer completely, right? Good writers are actually truly needed more than ever, but their role is changing. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit when it comes to long form. But knowing that AI can be as good as humanly generated content, that comes from the access that AI has to all of the data. It's just billions of data points that we would never be able to sift through in a matter of seconds. So it's not like I'm better than the writer or the writer is better than AI. That argument is moot. We're not stuck there anymore. It literally is a fact that AI is here. So human only content writing truly is obsolete, and it's time to switch your writers. If you have any on your team that are doing inbound content, it's really time to switch them into AIO. So this is going to make them dramatically faster and better at producing long form. My writer went from 8 hours per post down to 1.5. And this was a really good writer, right? So this is what the writer's role will change into, especially the writers that are really good. They're going to be needed more than ever, but their role will change. So let's talk about AIO, because yes, it's something that my team and I invented. So it's definitely novel. So let's discuss it and talk about what this actually is. So the AIO model comes from how we wanted to describe the baseline versus, so the old baseline versus the new baseline. The old baseline was a writer would open a Word doc, start to research on the internet, and put together good content. But now AI is that human plus Word doc replacer. You can open AI, prompt it, and get that content. The same kind of content that would take a writer hours, right? And then a lot of pay to generate. So the biggest problem in content marketing for the last decade, I've been in it, right? Serving up content to thousands of businesses. Content creation, that's the roadblock. That's the biggest problem. Who are we going to hire? How are we going to train them? Do they know SEO content? Do they know how to write for the internet? Do they know how to write a good blog hook? There's like 15 components that make up a good blog. I've studied them. I've studied under the best bloggers in the world, people that got millions of reads per blog. So it's an art and a science to write good long form content. And if your long form content like isn't getting you results, probably because it's not good yet. Like once it's good, you get results from it. It's incredible. So the AIO model is all about getting that great content. And the O represents optimization, which is going to be done humanly. You take that AI-driven content, you make it better. So the problem gets solved. You still have AI in the mix, saving so much time and money, but you still get results and you still publish content that works because you switched your team over into AIO. So this model comes from hundreds and hundreds, I would say probably now thousands of use cases. I'm in an AI writing company where we're doing about 40, not 4.5 times that by 10, 40 million words a month. That's from users. And then on our done for you side, 500,000 words per month. And to put that into context, I ran a human writing agency for 10 years and we did 10 million words per year. And that was a lot. So for our users to be generating 40 million words a month, that's 4 years of content in 1 month. And that's crazy. And this is original long form content. So this is a look at the actual model. If you were there at my talk in March at the Certified Partner Training Day, you saw this. So this is a literal representation of the old human only SEO content writing versus the new style, which is AI is your baseline. It costs you way less time and money. And then you're rerouting your human team into less layers. And you're actually able to get more, and I would say better output. We heard from a writer yesterday, and she was like, this makes me a more creative person. The fact that I just need to edit now. Like, I don't need to spend hours trying to get something out of myself that's original. So I think that's the beauty of AI. We can tap into the power of a machine and just save not just time, but creative energy. So, there are many writers that don't want to adapt, but once they see that their life can actually get easier and better, and I would even say they can make more money, right? In our businesses, we can make more money by adapting to this model. It's incredible what you can do with services that you sell. So one client that we helped adapt, they were a very niche marketing agency called Journey Engine. They went from paying over $700 per blog to $65. And that was with the human work involved. It was unbelievable because, again, you're saving hours and hours of time by generating that long form piece in 5 minutes. And then you're taking it from there and you're making it better. So I wanted to share a picture of what content marketing used to look like versus what we're going to see in the future. And this is all about something that's, I think, vital to where we're going, called redistribution, because what the human used to do in content marketing is going to change. It's going to change permanently, and I think it's going to change pretty quickly. The bottleneck in the end, AI's bottleneck, is the human. So that in the end, that's the question we got to ask, is how quickly will the boss, the client that we work for, adapt, right? So if we can bring them on board, then adaptation will happen much quicker. So if we think back to that number one bottleneck that I mentioned in content marketing, what was it? It was writing. It was the actual creation of the piece. The biggest bottleneck by far. How do we get that writer? How do we train them? How do we manage them? How do we get them, to write on time? How do we get them to write 3,000 words? How do we get them to do that over and over again? That's just not easy. And that was the biggest bottleneck to long form content. So this is the redistribution of it. Writing is now the lowest difficulty piece if you bring in AI into the process. And now you can redistribute everything your writer does. My writer is doing more strategy. She's doing more optimization. She's in WordPress more frequently. Like, we're getting way more out of her role because she's not just mired in the writing. And that's an amazing shift, I think, that we can do. So not just the redistribution of the actual tasks, but the roles and the layers of the human factor. So how many humans do we have to hire for a large scale content marketing campaign? What are their roles? That's going to shift too. So again, this is what it used to look like back in the day. And we're talking like a month ago, because this, AI has accelerated so quickly, so fast. So really just a few months ago, this is what we were doing, including myself. When we had a client that needed a major content marketing campaign, it was all about the writers. Okay, how do we find these writers? How do we source them? How do we train them? So we can completely change that with AI. We can bring in AI tools into the writing process and eliminate the need for, 5+ writers. And here's a real look at that, again, based on actual case studies that are happening right now, from over 40 million words per month in our software. So you can get a 10x increase versus those 10 writers that you have to hire, manage, train, the SEO part, the long form part. That includes like SERP knowledge. I would train my writers, go and look at the top of Google, get the top 3 to 5 results, count the words. We got Chrome plugins for that. I mean, this is a process, right? True long form content we're talking about here. So in order to get that output, you had to do a lot of work, not just hiring that person, not just managing them, but training them, because not all SEO writers knew how to do this skill. And that's eliminated. The technology's here that writes it for you and even puts it in an outline with keywords generated on the spot. So you can replace 10 human writers really with one, and I think get way better at your process. And what we're seeing is that, you can reroute those humans to do more important things. It's not just about like, let's cut people and cut income. Like, that's not really what I'm about. I run businesses. I don't run them that way. I think we can reroute the work of our people to smarter and better things. So this was the actual ROI increase of this business that adapted to AIO. They went from paying a writing agency that was really blocking their access after one writer. It was like, you get one writer for $1,800 a month. You can only access them on this amount of days. So they told me it was a very difficult thing for them to get through. They had to wade through a lot of red tape. So now, they can open the AI software and have it run at any time and generate great content. And it's a 25x increase for them. So there's an SOP that I wrote for them. If you take a screenshot of that, or maybe we can have Michelle do that and send it through chat later. But if you scan that, it'll actually get you the SOP that I wrote for them, called the AIO Writers Work Sprint. So it's every step on how to take their writer from human only to let's now open the AI tool, let's produce long form, and then let's follow 5 steps to edit that long form content. Because that's the important thing, right? You don't just want to spit out content from the AI tool. You really want to make it better. So a few elephants in the room before we get to live use cases here, which is going to be really fun because ChatGPT is down, but not to worry. We have screenshots from 24 hours ago. So the elephants in the room, this is the first question. And this paused me for a good few months, I will tell you, because I was really worried about this. All of my websites, all of them, the traffic that we get comes from Google. So if we were to lose those rankings, that's money lost overnight. So I cannot play around with this at all. So in April of last year, when John Mueller was pretty clear saying, hey, AI generated content is against our guidelines, I didn't want to touch it. I mean, I didn't even open ChatGPT and I didn't use a single sentence from it. I was like, ooh. And then all that changed in October 2022. And now we know they were working on their own technology, right? So Google Bard came out. But in October of 2022, they redid their guidelines completely. They were like, oops, we can't say that AI content is bad. And they backtracked that and they edited the guidelines to say that spammy content is bad. Text that makes no sense and is stuffed with keywords. So really the same old problem since the beginning of time. Are you spamming your users or are you actually writing useful content? So the short answer is you can use AI to write SEO content, but you really can't skip the human review part. If you do, you're putting yourself in danger of deranking. So if you just grab content from AI, put it on your website, that's when you're going to get penalized. And it's not because you're using AI, it's because you're not fact checking. It's because you're not making sure the quality is good. So have that rule and you won't go wrong. Create great content. So the second elephant in the room, who actually owns the copyright? This was another big question. Well, if I publish a 10,000 word guide, which we do, ultimate guides to rank at the top of Google, and Microsoft wants to come back to me and say, we own this and you got to take it down. Well, if that piece was making me 20 grand a month, that's going to suck. So who actually owns the copyright? Well, the US Copyright Office actually has a ruling out on this. And they say that if content was created by an AI system, then the copyright for that content belongs to the person who owns the AI system. So in other words, the creator of the AI tool owns that copyright. Ding, ding, ding. So I was like, more questions came up from that. Well, is Microsoft going to pass that copyright down to me? Do I actually get to own that copyright in the end? And if you ask ChatGPT this question, even it is unclear and it'll tell you the final decision should be left to the courts. So again, big question mark on our topic today is long form content for your website. Can you use ChatGPT content, Jasper content, and can you pull it straight from the tool and use it for your website? So in the end, this is where I landed after a lot of research and questions asked, and not just to ChatGPT, but actual qualified persons as well, attorneys. So I learned that whenever you have proprietary technology that's built using OpenAI's model, but it's stacked together in unique ways, then the creator of that tool owns an official copyright that they can pass down to you. And that sounds really confusing, but what that means is you need to check with the creator of the tool. So the creator of the tool should be passing the copyright down to you, and it should be very clear. If not, I really wouldn't use it for long form content because again, that's your money content. It's going on your site. It's going out there. It's going in front of people. It's going to bring you traffic. It's going to bring you revenue. So inbound content, you really want to own the copyright. You don't want to leave that copyright up to, some generalized tool that doesn't have a specific description. So that's the answer there. Not very clear, but at least there is an answer. Check with the owner of the tool and make sure they're clear. So how do you make sure that you don't lose the human touch when you publish long form content? Because, even the best AI writer out there isn't human in the end. They don't have your human touch. They don't have your company's human history. They don't have your story. So how do you not lose that completely? So the same technology that invented ChatGPT has now given us a way to classify content and tell us if it's robotically written or not. So OpenAI launched their classifier January 31st, and it's officially called AI Detector. So AI detection is a technology that allows you to check and see if your content is human or AI. And I would really encourage you to run your content through an AI detector. Make this a staple of your process, just as much as, for example, we did plagiarism testing in my agency for 10 years to make sure our writers weren't copying something. So this is just as important is AI detection and making sure your content passes. So a few tools out there, originality.ai, it'll give you scores and it'll tell you, okay, this is original or it's AI. GPT-0, it was really built for educators. So it's more geared towards that. If you run long form through it, sometimes it's way off with the results. It'll tell you that human content reads robotic and vice versa. So take GPT-0 if you're going to use it with a grain of salt, because it's definitely more for education essay versus long form. And then Content at Scale has a free AI detector. You can run it specifically for blogging, long form content, any kind of marketing content. You can run it through and it'll tell you how human-like the content reads. And then on the right, it'll actually highlight sections. And if you hover on those sections, it'll tell you what to rewrite and how to rewrite it. Like, well, this sentence reads a bit stuffy. Consider rewording a few, consider rephrasing these words. So this is one of my favorites, right? Because if we think about long form content, this is the one that helps you get to that result. Like this is going to be human content, 98% score is great. And by the way, that was a score for content written by this tool with very little editing. So you can get AI content and it's going to be pretty human-like out of the gate, which is amazing. We're there. Can't believe it. So yeah, that's a screenshot of what it looks like using Content at Scale's AI detector. It'll tell you sentence by sentence, hey, this is AI generated or not. You can make this more human sounding. Just choose some different words. So I've told writers, open up Thesaurus and just diversify your choices. I mean, you could ask ChatGPT, give me a list of alternate words for, so you can use that instead of thesaurus.com. But let's get into how to actually use AI to create long form content. And I want to do some use cases, right? Because nothing's better than actually using this technology. So we're going to switch to live here in a minute, but real quick before we do, I referenced this, I think in the middle somewhere of this session, and I just wanted to spend 2 minutes going over this. But whenever we talk about AIO, this is really what it's built on. So our goal with AIO is to help the writer know what the heck they're doing these days. So, it was SEO content. Now you're using AI, replacing hours of your time, and you're making that content better, going from 7 to 8 hours, which my writer was spending at Content Hacker for one blog, to 1 hour to 40 minutes. And this is how we're doing it. So the first step, and you can approach these however you want. I've had some writers start with fact checking. I've had some writers start by adding images. But this is especially true once you're in the editor. So if you're using an AI that syncs to WordPress, or if you're in WordPress itself, the back end of your site, this is when you want to spend the time to really get that long form piece to shine, because it's not going to shine straight out of AI. So even though there's probably some people here that remember me wearing a shirt at the March event that said straight out of AI, but that said, you still need to make it better even when it comes out of AI. So you want to cut the fluff, you want to get the extraneous content out of there. I see words like moreover, furthermore, words that really annoy me because, in 10 years of doing content, those words have no place. You got to cut the fluff. So you want to do that with your AI process here. You want to make sure you get straight to the point and get straight to what you want to say. And then you want to review and edit and optimize it for SEO specifically, because something that AI will also do is it'll tend to stuff the keywords in there a little too much. We've seen that happen where it can actually read a little stuffy. So you just need to review the SEO part, ask yourself, are the keywords in here enough? Are they in here too much? Do I need to make it better? And then you're going to add pictures, visuals. Pictures say 1,000 words. Studies have shown that the scroll time on sites is a lot longer if you have an image every 200 words. How do I know facts like that? From doing content for 10 years. So an image every 2 paragraphs can really drive home your points, and it can actually increase your scroll time and lower your bounce rate. So that's a really important part of this. And then the fact checking part, I would double check the facts, whether it was human or AI, but especially AI, because it's notorious for that. Double check your facts, run them through Google, go through the rabbit holes of checking those facts. And then lastly, you want to trust build. That's one of my favorite ones. You can really bring in some creative elements here. And it's interesting, right? Because we talked about the redistribution of time and roles, what people are going to do in content marketing, which, by the way, is a $600 billion industry. The number one outsourced thing is content. That's crazy. So we're going to see everything reroute in content marketing. And I think, like, if you run a business and you sell marketing, it's a perfect time to build something with AI in the base. I'm seeing people in different communities I'm in making lots of money doing that. And you can be clear with your clients. This is AI written. We just make it better. Clients usually thumbs up that one. They don't mind at all. We're in those times. So rabbit hole aside there, trust building, you can put more time on this. You can have your writer go get case studies from clients because they're not spending as much time writing. So there's some magic there for sure. But that's the craft framework. And by the way, we have a full tutorial coming out on my YouTube channel, Julia E. McCoy, on this pretty soon. So, it's going to be an hour of being very nitpicky with content. So if that's your thing, definitely stay tuned for that. But I want to switch to live use cases. So let's go ahead and switch on over to, first of all, I'm going to start with ChatGPT. And Mark, I'll bounce it back to you for a second. Should we take any Q&A or should we get right into the live?
Sure. We actually have a few. Most of them have to do with the, licensing, who owns the content. And I know we don't actually know what that is yet. But there was one question: how will content SEO play against search box optimization? I heard people are buying keyword for the box. Actually, Melissa, do you want to unmute real quick and explain your question a little bit? Actually, while we're doing that, we do have another question from Tony. He said, I wonder how reliable the AI detectors are. I did a test a couple of weeks ago and had some content I wrote about 6 years ago for a niche site I own, and originality said it was at 45% AI written.
Yes, that's a great question. Let's do that one. So the important thing to keep in mind is that AI technology, or specifically AI detection technology, it doesn't actually know for sure if it was written by a robot or a human. So what it does know is sentence syntax. So it's going to look at that sentence, run the way it's written through all of the pieces of data it has, and it's going to say, okay, that reads like the way a robot would write versus that reads like the way a human would talk. So unfortunately, a lot of writers that I've tested, trained, hired, they have a bad habit of writing like a robot. So we see a lot of writers actually getting dinged in these AI detectors. And then, there's offended tweets on Twitter and writers are going, oh, what the heck? These tools need to be sued. But if you just remember that the tool actually doesn't know that it's robotic or human, all it knows is sentence syntax. And it's predicting that word string and how similar that word string is to the way a robot would write. So if you wrote like a robot, oops, it's going to call you out. And that's the short answer there.
Yeah, I'd almost say that if you are following the rules you learned in school a little too strictly, it's probably going to ding you for it. So you have to
sadly
write worse. Not worse, but again, more human, more conversational, reference more personal stories, just make it more like a person would write it. Because if you just stick with facts, like, I think that's a big difference with content writing in general. Is before you could do essentially like a research report on any topic and you'd be fine, but now if you if you stick to the facts a little bit too much, then you'll probably get dinged as an AI, which is interesting. It's a switch, but I would say, yes, it could just be your writing style is the culprit.
Yes, exactly. Kevin said his editor wants him to be 100% compliant with what he was taught in school. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
They're stuck in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't work today. That's going to decrease your everything, conversions.
Yeah, well, I think if you're being safe, because I know there's some industries like finance or a lot of law, where you can't mince words because you could be breaking the law if you said something a certain way. So there are cases like that. Just know that you might not get as good ranking on SEO if it is seen as AI. And that could be what you tell your boss too, like, hey, I'll do whatever you say, but if I do it this way, we're probably not going to get the performance that you're going to want out of it.
Yes. Great way to say it.
Awesome. And then Kevin actually had another question. Do you find fact checking as the fourth step wastes time? What's the advantage of doing this after spending time editing?
Yeah. So it's something I mentioned was to, approach that checklist with your own way of how you want to do it. And what I'm seeing work really well is my writers kind of incorporating that alongside cut the fluff. But the reason we have it as a dedicated step is because we want to reinforce how important that is. You don't, especially in those YMYL industries, your money or your life, says Google. You don't want to be publishing something that ChatGPT is like, well, you should do this in regards to this medical condition, and then it's completely inaccurate. So it deserves its own step, but how you approach it is completely up to you. If it's step 4 or step 1, and in our AIO writing tutorial, I talk about that. So it's totally up to you on how you want to approach that. Just make sure it happens. You're good.
Yeah. All right. Last one, then we'll keep on moving. Let's see. So if it isn't 100%, how is Google going to rank versus, this one's kind of vague, but basically he's asking how will it affect Google ranking human versus AI, but we kind of don't know. That was Vicky's question.
We have Melissa, who was able to unmute, if you want to go back to her question now.
Oh, yeah. Let's do Melissa's.
Okay, so I've been following some of these other people, and one of them, he's an SEO guy, and he's been with Google forever, but he's switching over to Bing, but it kind of applies to both of them, is that the search engine box where you type in your keywords, and even Google's doing this where they're just the keyword, and then you can buy that keyword, or that then Google has questions and then it answers the questions, but it doesn't rank content at all. It just starts ranking keywords at the top, and then AI starts answering the questions and pulling data from multiple places. So my question is that we spend all this time, making this strategy content, and because of AI and because of keyword search, box optimization and all that, where does it get seen? How does what's the yeah.
Yeah. No, I follow you.
Just asking a big question.
I follow you. No, I totally follow you. It sounds like you're talking about Perplexity, Perplexity.ai. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that, but I've been watching Bing, and I've been watching things on, the new way Google is, just answering questions and then moving it in. And I was like, well, if I do a full-on strategy plan, long form, and I kick some ass with all these technologies and then nobody can find them, where am I going to go? So if you have a solution, I'm all in.
Yeah. So that's definitely a big question, right? Is how will Google change and morph their search results to look like ChatGPT, basically? So Perplexity.ai is the best playground for this. It was created by OpenAI to predict what Google will look like one day. So definitely test that out. And what I see whenever I'm playing with it, and, as somebody that got 40,000 rankings in Google, right? That's my big question too, Melissa, is like, whoa, boy. So in Perplexity.ai, something that you'll see is as it writes the answer for you, which is the predicted next evolution of Google, as it writes the answer, it's going to show you the exact match domain that came from. So the domain will hold a lot of weight. Well, guess where that weight comes from? Ding, 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 content. So you still have to do content to even appear in that ChatGPT-like written answer. And then the content it's going to pull in to write that answer could come straight from your content. And if your URL has weight, which is built through content, through links, content that earns links, a link building campaign, all of that creates that DA, domain authority, then you'll float to the top of that ChatGPT written answer. So you'll see the exact match domains, and you'll see this if you use perplexity.ai, you'll really see it in action because you'll see like the exact match domain. We're going to go back to domains have a lot of weight, especially in the title of that domain, like digitalmarketer.com holds a lot of weight. Thank God the team's been working on that. So that domain is going to be preferred above others, and you're actually going to be able to see it as a citation. So almost like, when we wrote essays and we added footnotes, and that footnote featured that author. So search engines could work like that one day. And that footnote is going to give you even more authority, I think, than the current way the SERPs are structured. So we have yet to see that happen. Google hasn't even really done much. Bard was a failed attempt to say, oh, we're now in AI. So I think yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add to that because I have a little bit more cynical view of what's going to happen. But what it comes down to is that content on your website is going to be the only way that people are going to come to the website in the first place. And what you have to do, or what I'm telling people to do, if you want to safeguard against any major changes to SEO, is you need to privatize your following, where people know about the content that you create because you tell them about it. And then your website itself will have to become a resource that people will start using instead of going to Google or instead of going to ChatGPT, because they know that you're the authority within, a niche and that they could get the right answer from you, so they don't need to go anywhere else. So it's going to basically up the value, just like Julia said, of the website itself, and make the content on your website way more important. And then in terms of the website being out, people finding information on your website, I think what's going to happen is that each website is going to have its own generative AI that will create answers based on your content. And then you'll want to privatize your content so that no other AI can access it. That way people have to come to your AI to access it. So it's complicated, but I think what's going to happen is the big vendors, Digital Marketer, we have thousands of pieces of content. So we could actually make our own AI and then just generate information based off of our content. That way, even though it is AI generating the content, the database is our database. So it's only going to pull from what we know. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I think that's what's going to have to happen with everybody's websites if you want to, get traffic at all.
Yeah.
Or that you're not paying for.
Good content just got way more important if that's where we're headed. Like not just any content here we're talking about, but really good content that people want to read, subscribe to. So becoming your own brand. I mean, I think that was always important, but now it just became so much more important. Having your own perspective, having your own viewpoint, adding those elements I was showing, right? Trust building elements. So that was a good addition, Mark. I like what you said about privatizing. And creating like your own resource, your own AI, become your own AI. Look at that.
Well, it's funny is I've been pitching this since like 2010, where I was like, everybody needs to become a resource. Like, this is why content marketing matters. So it's actually just going back to that, which is funny. It only took like 13 years.
Wow. And who knows how many more years it'll take till we see ChatGPT embedded in Google, because Google is just, I don't know. They don't morph very well into evolution.
They're
There's
big.
a lot. Yes.
It's hard to turn a aircraft carrier, and that's essentially what they're trying to do. And it's like, okay, we'll see. You're moving slow.
Yes, true. Well, should we get into actually writing a content piece?
Yes, let's
AI?
do that. And then we will get back to question and answers. I just want to make sure we cover that before.
Right. Sounds good. All right. Well, I will switch to my screen here and get into not that browser. Another one. Okay. So what I wanted to show you next was actually writing content, because I think it's, one thing to talk about it, right? Another to actually do it. And then I think one of you was saying that ChatGPT was actually back. If so, that's good news, because it was not at the beginning of this session. So let's see. Tell us in the chat if it's working. It's not for me. And I'm a plus.
I'll try it on mine right now.
I'm a plus, so I'm paying, the ridiculously
Yeah.
high fee of 20 a month. Not.
Yeah, I'm not up either.
Dang. Well, so I took screenshots, and where I wanted to start was ChatGPT, right? Because I think what this can show us is a use case for a stack of software, which was something I was talking about with copyright. When somebody builds a software stack, that person then owns the copyright of whatever content that stack generates. So with ChatGPT, there's a lot of questions around copyright ownership. Am I going to take this, put it on my website? Am I going to take it, put it in a book? Definitely not. Or if I am, I'm going to make it 100% my own, just because of the copyright concerns alone. So with blogging, I was pretty reluctant to approach it because of that. Another reason was, it just wasn't writing good content for long form, which again, like it's an art and a science to write that. I've trained writers. It took a long time for writers to learn that. So this is what happened whenever I asked GPT-4, which I had access to, I want to say last Thursday. I finally got access to it. So I was like, I really got to see if this thing can do long form. Let's do it. So like James teaches, context gets you really good content. So instead of just prompting it, hey, write a 500 word, or in my case, a 2000 word blog, and there's character limitations. So it's not even going to respond to that prompt well. So before I start there, I teach it about me. So I'm feeding it my bio. I'm asking it, does it know me? It said it really didn't. There's a lot of Julia McCoys. I was sad to hear that answer. So it should have known me. I'm just kidding. So then I fed it my bio, and then it reread that bio back to me. So it got to know me a little bit. And then I asked it to write, and I don't have the next screenshot for that prompt, but I asked it to write a long form blog. And I went through this blog line by line. And I will say, because we gave it some context, the opener was pretty good. The first sentence after the table of contents. So it gave me an outline, and then it started actually writing the blog. The outline was so-so. I mean, this is average content, especially for the keyword content marketing calendar. This is content that isn't much better than what's already out there in Google, which that's always one of my goals when I create long form, is how do we actually compete with and do better than the top of Google. So we want to say things we want to get to the point. We don't want to be repetitive, and we want to say things in unique ways. So a lot of this at first glance was definitely repetitive. I don't know if I would necessarily use the outline that it gave me. This first sentence was pretty good. If there's one thing I've learned throughout my journey as a content marketing strategist and author, it's that success in the digital world doesn't happen by accident. That's pretty good. I gotta say, that was really good. And then the next two sentences, I would just classify as fluff. Like they just do not read well. I would delete them. One of the blogs that I follow is smartblogger.com. The creators of that blog, they have created blogs that get read over 9 million times per blog, and their style is one sentence paragraphs. So, if you want to get that scroll time, you want to increase your time on page, that's the style we want to adapt to. So, and we could ask ChatGPT to write that style, but it's going to take a lot of prompts. And that's where I end up with ChatGPT with long form. So whenever I asked it to continue writing, it kept breaking, even though I was on GPT-4, and that's ChatGPT plus. So it kept breaking. Down here, it said there was an error, and then the font turned red and it got a little scary looking. But anyway, so that was my go, which I would try to replicate now, but it's completely down. So the next tool I want to show you for long form content is, of course, Content at Scale. Let's actually use it to create content. So what I'd love to do is get a keyword from one of you and actually write a blog for you, like right now, like we can actually do it together. So let's do it. So Mark, do you want to, or Michelle, do you want to get somebody in the comments? All we need is a good keyword that you had on your calendar, preferably like a how-to and informational keyword.
Ooh,
And
how
I
to
can give
rescue
ideas.
cats.
How to rescue cats. Oh, okay.
Let's see, metaverse, B2B marketing. That's newer topic. Can we do two? Maybe one that's more B2C and one more B2B?
Depends on which time, because I want to get through and edit. You know, I don't want to keep people here till dinner, right? We could, but let's do one. Let's pick one, and then we'll see how much time we have left. Maybe we can do two.
I want to do something that's, we did the DEI article at the last, which I thought was super impressive because that's not a acronym that too many people know.
Yes.
It's diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
There is one, let's see, how to get compliant for defense contractors.
Oh, whoa.
Tony, do you want to
Oh,
unmute Tony and see if
that's gonna be tough. We can do
see.
it.
I'd say that or the metaverse B2B marketing, because there's not too many articles on that.
Yeah. No, let's go with Tony. I like it. And we'll need a website too. So I assume Tony would have a website.
Michelle, can we unmute Tony?
Finding Tony. Hold on. What's the last name?
Last name is Aponte.
Got it.
A-P-O-N.
Tony, I just requested you to unmute. Let me know if that works.
Hello.
Hello.
I
Hi.
figured no one would come up with that topic. So I'm actually the marketing manager for a IT company, and we specifically work with defense contractors on getting them compliant so that way they can win contracts, defense contracts. And so the website that I have taken over is CMN. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Good idea.
It's kind of like very tongue twister.
Let me grab that. Yes, it's probably one I would not have spelled right on the first time.
Yeah.
So-
Like I said, it's a tongue twister. I have to like actually double check my spelling every time I type it out.
That is, wow. And let me just pull it up here as well. Okay, so the first step when we're using Continent Scale is to start a project. And what that does is it creates some background for the long form piece. And eventually what it will do is it will be able to pretty much crawl the whole site and look at content. So the technology will be there. The ETA on that, I can't say when, soon. That's the answer. So this gives the piece that we're going to write some context. So the first thing we'll put is the name of the actual company, which is, will you tell me that, Tony? Is it just this On Call Computer Solutions?
That's the company, yes.
Company name. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to plug that in Continent Scale here, and then the context. This is where we talk about what the actual end service is. So what is it that they do? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just pull it directly from the homepage tagline. Would that be something you would say would be accurate? Is this like out of
Yes.
date? Okay.
Yeah. We actually just redid the front page to be a lot more specific to what we're trying to do.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, that will definitely help the AI then. That's great. Okay, so let's see. And then we're going to rewrite this to be a sentence. We help. We help create affordable, done for you. Has to compliance tailored to organizations with hands-on guidance from our, just reading through this. Okay. All right. That's pretty good for a summary. And then who is it that this company targets?
So defense contractors, that's any business that does any kind of work with the government, manufacturing companies, small business, one, two, solo, I mean, all over the place when it comes to size. but very niche.
Sized businesses. Yes, for sure. Okay, so defense contractors in government and government manufacturing. Let's see. Small to large size businesses. Do you feel good about that description for the target audience? Is there anything there you would correct?
So
Defense contractors.
I would take in government out because they're not actually in government. It's the government that provides the contracts.
Okay.
But manufacturing, IT, cybersecurity companies, because we do a lot of work with IT companies that work with other businesses, but they don't know how to get their clients compliant. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty good right there, I think.
Cool. Yes, that's definitely specific, which helps a lot versus being really broad with the audience. So I
Yeah.
think for the size, we'll put it here, small to large size defense contractors. Okay, cool. And then for the tone of voice, is there one you've already identified for this company?
So so it's funny because I've actually been playing around with some of the tones, because we hit YouTube pretty hard. So I've been playing around with the tones on the scripts, and we found that we do a very friendly but authoritative tone.
Okay.
And it's actually been it's very well received.
Huh, interesting. So friendly and authoritative. I like how you identify that. Huh. So in this case, what I would probably do, I would go with informative versus authoritative, because
Yeah.
I think informative will actually get you that friendly vibes and authority building tone.
Yep.
Cool. So let's do that. And then we'll leave the rest alone. Doesn't really matter. We can change monthly post. Okay. So now that we have the project in the background, now we can actually create a piece of content. So we can choose the word count here. We'll keep with the default. And what was the keyword that you had?
So let's see. I actually just finished writing a blog post. I would say CMMC compliance requirements. That's hot right now because it just went into law that all defense contractors have to be compliant by the end of this month in order to be able to win any more contracts. So that's like the hot topic right now.
Okay. So let's see. Let's frame that with like some informational keyword structure. How about how to get ready or how to adapt?
Yeah, no, yeah, you could do how to get ready for CMMC.
Get ready. Or is there any other word you would add here? Would you take out one of these words?
I would, we could take out compliance and just and CMMC requirements.
Okay. Nice. Well, we are really going to task AI right now. See how well
Make it
does
work.
For real. Write a complete article for defense contractors to help them know how to, we're just going to paste in the keyword again, how to. So the purpose of this additional context, think of this like the prompt you would give ChatGPT. If it didn't break and it wrote the long form content, I was trying to get it to write back here. So you would just give this tool really 2 sentences. It could be 1 to 2, and it'll write the whole piece based on that. So a couple things we want to do here. First, just summarize what we actually want it to do. And then if we can get any kind of specifics as well. So one way I get those specifics is I actually drop the keyword in Google and I look at what Google is ranking. So, this is interesting. A 5-step guide to prepare. Okay, it's somewhat old. So, we'll probably want to say, find current data on this, especially you said like this just came out. However, ChatGPT, because this is built with, OpenAI's model, one of 3 NLPs, content at scales technology. So it may have some limited knowledge there. But what I would do is pull in let's see, identify your, I would pull in some of this depending on what is still relevant. So we could say,
So I know in the past 6 months, based on the research that I've had, this has been a discussion that's been going on now since 2017, but the government has not pulled the trigger on it till last year. So a lot of the
Hmm.
content that is out there is still relevant. It is
Oh.
the steps to get compliant has not changed. It's the urgency when it's required now that's been the issue. So the content is still pretty reliable.
okay. Well, that is some peace of mind there because otherwise might get in trouble today. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is like reword some of these steps, because what we're doing is we're pulling in terms that are going to be important to have in this article. So I like to feed it like some of those terms, especially like we're definitely in a tougher industry. We're in very niche industry here. So we're going to say, I'm just going to reword some of these, pasting them here from the article. So the first step was to identify your CMMC level and then scope out those two things. You can tell I really don't know what I'm writing about here. The AI will know more than me. Okay. And that's why it's amazing. You know, you can have any writer prompt this. They don't have to know these terms. Scope out your FCI. Okay. Conduct is the next one. Know how to conduct a an SSP. And okay, so we're gonna make this a whole sentence instead of just fragments here. So write a complete article. We're targeting our audience. Let's see, help them identify scope. Okay, know how to conduct. And let's see if we can pull any last pieces from this and get certified. Would that be relevant to
Yes.
your, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I feel like this would be a really good prompt to help it
Oh,
get
yeah,
started.
that's good.
Cool. I like it too. So what we can do is two things. We can have it actually write the brief and look at the brief and see if we like it. If not, we can change subheaders. We can add some. Okay, so it's okay. That's yeah,
Yeah, no, that's right on point.
it is definitely. Understand and look at that. It's identifying that there's 5 levels. Is
Yep.
that correct? Are
Yes,
there-
there's 5 levels
Nice.
and different companies are required certain levels. So yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay. And then we have, is the descriptions of those acronyms, is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep,
Nice.
100%. Yep.
Very good. Great. Do you feel like that's also correctly stated?
Yep.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, so far.
Looks like you might have a good blog
Wow.
post.
Definitely. Yes. I mean, if I was writing this, I would, yeah, I would not know what I'm writing about.
Well,
I would be BSing it.
yeah, if you'd have told me I was going to be writing content for this niche about 6 months ago, I would have looked at you like you had 2 heads on your shoulders. It's been a learning process for me.
Well, you sound like you know a lot about it, so you're doing good. Yeah, definitely a tough niche for sure. So now we just wait for it to write, and it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes, and it'll give us a status bar, and you can hover and it'll actually say the progress, and it goes through these 6 steps here, or really 5, and then there's a summary. So it'll write the post, it'll actually scrape SERPs then and there, and that's a step, you know, I would definitely be doing myself or training a writer. Go look at the top of Google, research those things, and make sure you're incorporating that type of content in your long form. And then the FAQ section, that's your people also ask, which is like renamed again. So now it's more to ask. So what
It's
it
a
does.
terrible update.
What did you say, Mark?
Oh, just the more to, like, why would they change that? They do that kind of stuff all the time.
I know. I'm like, I have video trainings on this. Now I got to redo the slide. So it's pulling in the FAQs straight from Google. So it's going to pull in these and then rewrite them. And that's like going to be huge for blogs, like the FAQ section. Oh my goodness. You know, we see people that have domain authority rank pretty quickly because they have FAQs, which is something like I don't always remember to write that in every blog post. Make sure you answer all the FAQs around this keyword.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's going to
Well,
pull
you're probably
those from
burnt
Google.
out by that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. 2,500 words in, you're a little tired. Yeah.
We do have a few other questions that we could answer while we're waiting for that to generate.
Okay. Well, I wanted to like actually show Tony how much time
Oh,
it
show the
took
process.
if we could. Okay, it's
Oh,
60% done.
60%. Okay,
Nice.
it was at 0. I was like, I don't know if it's gonna, how long is it?
We can do Q&A if it was at 0. It's cool though to see this live, you know, versus like you can watch YouTube videos all day, go to demos. It's so much more fun to actually do this live. So it looks like it's done scraping the SERPs, done finding FAQs, NLP is done. So now it's just writing. So we'll see how it actually reads. Yeah, this one's definitely taking a little bit longer. It's been 3 minutes. Look at me complaining about the length of
Complaining.
time.
For a 2,500 word article. That's
Oh, here we go. We got a headline already. Interesting.
I like that title. The headline.
Nice. That was going to be my question for you, but I was going to.
That's around pretty much how the past couple weeks of our YouTube videos have been all around that exact topic right there.
Yeah, actually, and
Wow.
that's a good point about using AI too, because sometimes I'll see titles and I'll be like, you know what, that title is just terrible. Like, why would anybody think that was good? But if you go to the target market a lot of times and you say like, is this a good title? More often than not, they'll say like, yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah.
And just as a writer, you tend to like overcomplicate it or apply your personal preferences. Whereas with AI, you know, it does it for you.
Well, you know what's fun? I'll just throw something in real quick. Because I use vidIQ a lot
Oh,
for
I
our
love that.
YouTube channel, and I've actually found that I actually get a better title from ChatGPT than on vidIQ,
Huh?
because I've noticed that vidIQ kind of like I don't know if it's just the topic that it just has a challenge really coming up with really good titles, but I've actually used a lot more titles from ChatGPT versus vidIQ.
Yeah, well, you know, if you have an algorithm, it's always going to produce the same result.
Yeah, right.
Like-
Yeah. And that's exactly what I've found. It's like the same. They're all like repetition of each other. It's like, okay, I need something different.
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's just looking at, okay, here's the top 25, you know, videos in this category. Let me rearrange some stuff, and then we're going to apply our, you know, framework for titles, and then, yeah, it starts getting repetitive. Whereas ChatGPT, you could ask the same question the same day in a
Right.
different chat and a totally different answer.
True. Well, I'm going to
Moving
complain
on.
again.
Do you want to answer a question now? We'll do a short one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, how long do you think till we see sponsored content in AI search engines?
Oh, like, does that take into account like where search engines are headed? Like the
You know what's funny?
evolution of it? Yeah.
Because I had a vision for what I think is going to happen with these big companies that have this generative AI, where they'll basically drop you into what looks like a website, and then they'll just fill it up with ads like they would with any other website. And then that's how you would monetize them generating the content. But yeah, I think, well, the thing is with OpenAI, just ChatGPT in general, it was never intended to be a product. It's a research project. And
yeah.
what OpenAI, I think, is trying to do is use their API to make money off of other businesses versus off of just generating content. So I think you'll immediately see Google start to add ads. Bing already adds ads, you know, in their chat. So it's already happening as far as I've seen.
Yes. Yeah, I would say the same. I think like I would probably have to know some more context. You know, I don't want to just answer and not give a good answer there. I might need to understand more about what that person's trying to ask. But everything you said, Mark, is spot on.
Michelle, you want to unmute Dom Proctor? Oh, ready for optimization. Are we good to go?
The button still is not blue. Complaining again.
That's probably ChatGPT issues if that's one of the engines, right?
Yeah.
G'day.
Hello.
Oh, there you go. There's Dom.
Hey. Yeah, no, it was just like, I'm using ChatGPT every 20 minutes. When are those ads going to start appearing? And if I say, for example, I compare the results of a standard Google search to a ChatGPT search, the results are different. So obviously the data set's different, but at what point will I be able to sponsor the result of what comes up in the GPT or in, like you said, other search engines that have, have GPT built in and then the ads around it?
That's interesting. Well, I feel like we would have to see a whole new UX interface for that, and we haven't seen the UX of this evolution yet. Like, where are the ads going to be placed? Where are they going to be? But like Mark said, it's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of when and how. So, I wish I could peek into the future and make.
Actually, I have an even more
can.
unconventional view of what I think is going to happen, but I don't want to distract.
No, go ahead, Mark.
Well, if you think about just how advertising works and then you incorporate generative content creation to it, what you could do if you were a really sophisticated ad platform is take a topic where you're trying to sell something and just create a list of content for the thing you're trying to sell, present it as organic, an answer, but it leads the consumer to picking your solution because the articles are geared towards psychologically conditioning you for it. Now, I don't think nobody's doing that yet, but it's definitely a path you could take if you were trying to influence people's buying decisions.
Sounds like content marketing.
That's what content marketing is. So yeah, that's what I think should happen.
Subconscious influence towards our products and services. Yeah, I think it just goes to show like the importance of long form content, in the end, like it's going to stand out that it's a human piece and that we put time and effort. Like we're looking at an AI driven piece, right? 3,500 words here, but it's how we edit it, how we make it our story that's going to stand out. So you could go the route of paying for a placement, and then you could do this, and maybe there'll be a way, like Mark was saying, to put some kind of pay to get this featured up higher, even in the ChatGPT like search results. So yeah. Time will tell is the short answer. Sorry, Dom. I wish there was more detail there.
Cheers.
Cheers. So let's move to Tony because the blog is written. Oh my gosh, it's here. So is Tony unmuted?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Cool. So first of all, how do you feel about this? 3,500 words.
That's a good article.
Right. That's what I was going to say, especially for this, this topic. I feel like you would want to go longer rather than shorter. So
oh yeah, for sure.
So a few things here on the right, we have keywords, and the ones with the H, that means that's your header keywords. So like your H1, your H2s, H3s. And then the number represents how many times, the number on the right, that range, that represents how many times it shows up in the top of Google in these articles. So in the top 3 in Google, it's appearing 17 to 53 times, but it's only in here twice. So we would want to get our writer, or if that's you, get in here and edit that keyword by including it a few more times, like at least hit the minimum. That's my rule of thumb. And then when you hit the minimum, the actual keyword itself turns green. So this is a responsive editor. So that's the keywords there, how to understand that. But let's actually look at the piece. I want you to tell me like if the quality of writing is good or if it's crap, and you can be honest. Please be honest. So table of contents, we have all the subheaders. Wow, it
Man
pulled
alive.
it. Oh my
Wow.
gosh. That's a lot of FAQs. Wow. And we got some random numbers, but we can fix that. We can actually rerun it as well if we wanted to. Like, oh, I don't like how this is written. I want a whole new FAQ section. So you would just come up here under brief and click rerun post. And it's showing us as well where these are pulled from. So you'll see sources here on the right. So let's scroll through it. Let's see here.
Yeah,
So town,
starting to break down the levels now.
yes. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Is that an accurate description of those levels? I'm curious.
Yes, 3 through 5 is actually where most defense contractors want to be at. Because it puts them at a higher level to be able to win more contracts. Yeah, so that's good. I mean, it did like a very brief overview of all of them, but that's fine. That's good.
Wow, that's great. Because if it screwed that up and it was completely off, I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Hmm."
What I look at, what I'm seeing, and I think it's kind of interesting is that it's actually talking a lot about the SSP, the system security plan, which is like crucial to, if they don't have that, then they're not going to be compliant at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It even says it right. Just what you
Yep.
said. Important part of meeting the requirements.
Yep. And then the other one is
Mhm.
POAM, which I haven't seen it yet. So
Let's see here. It's interesting how it's pulling in like a very specific something here.
Yep.
What
Yep.
is that?
that's
Tell
those
us.
are those are the different clauses that
Oh,
are, that are related to to what is required, for the company. That's basically, it breaks down everything that they on those clauses there, what they have to have in place in order to be compliant.
okay. Interesting. And something we could do in the editing process is link that up, if we
Yep.
have a resource. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And then sometimes the tool does this. We just, delete that. It's putting in keywords that it used. That's a bug. So you shouldn't be seeing that.
Does it add that the key takeaways? That's part of the blog post that it actually adds in there.
Yes, it
Oh,
does.
wow.
And
Nice.
this is formatted for WordPress, which you can download the WordPress plugin and upload it to your, do you have WordPress? Is that what this
Yes.
is?
Yes.
Nice. So you can go up here to the statuses and you can actually schedule and publish it straight from here, and it syncs
Oh, wow.
completely to WordPress.
Nice.
Yes, that's a time-saving feature for us for sure. Okay, so I'm just scrolling through. Challenges faced by small businesses during the compliance process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
And this is kind of where our company is separate from everybody else. It usually takes about 6 to 18 months to go through this compliance process, and we've got a proprietary system set up where we can get them compliant within 3 to 4 days.
oh, wow. So that's definitely a part of the human process. Is I would
Yep.
add that,
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. And you could say, so all that said, you can use us to.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Wow. This is good.
nice. Yeah, it's all those.
Now, let me
tabs.
ask you a question. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me ask you a question, because I'm noticing in the content, and obviously, when it comes to SEO, what is, keyword density. That's basically what there's a lot of, I see a lot of
Mhm.
keywords in there that would get tagged, and I'm curious as to how this would be affected. And it's not that it's keyword stuffing, just because it is a very techie topic. You got NIST, you got CMMC as SSP, you got FedRAMP. I mean, all those, and it's kind of put in there quite a bit. How does this make sure that we don't run into an issue with that?
Yeah, so that's where I would have, would it be you writing and editing these? or would it
Yes.
be a writer?
Yeah,
Okay.
for now. I'm actually training
Yeah.
somebody for that.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So that's where the human side of it really comes into play. And what we see that works is, this is a rule of thumb. It's basically a rough guide to go by. But for example, like 53, that would be keyword stuffing for sure.
Yeah.
So you want to get this keyword in there a few more times and just weave that in there. But as far as like the amount of terms, I would say you could take that out, take that down. You'd be fine saying like referencing them in different ways. Like these can be used in tandem,
Mhm.
so you could just delete that. So you could take the use of those terms down. And that's where relying on your human judgment, like, okay, this is just, it doesn't read human. Like we always want to create human work.
Right.
So that's something I would definitely do. And that's part of the optimization process that we teach is look at those keywords, make sure they don't read stuffed in there and they don't come across like we're just trying to gain a ranking, because then the reader will see it and Google, and then we really don't win. So definitely something to do. And then breaking up the sentences into shorter, or breaking up the paragraphs into shorter sentences can help with that too, because then it doesn't feel like you're seeing all those terms on one line.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So human editing can't be ignored for sure, especially for this one. But like the baseline, right? You're saving hours. It's
Yeah.
all here.
No, yeah. I've noticed that with,
Yeah.
because I've been writing all my articles through ChatGPT, and I've actually definitely had to spend a little bit of time going through and cleaning it up just because I did for that very reason. But yeah, it saves a ton of time.
Yes. Yes. And another thing here is this, the third tab. So this is just a plagiarism checker, and this is Copyscape. So they're, the API call goes directly to Copyscape, which that's the one that I use in my writing agency, the oldest, most trusted plagiarism checker. So it's telling us that this is not duplicate at all. It's fully original.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes. Well, phew, it didn't break and it wrote good content.
I know, yeah. That's
Pretty
awesome.
good.
That was super impressive.
Yes. Well, I'll send this to you afterwards, Tony. So Slack me
sweet.
your email.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's yours.
Thank you. That's
Nice. That was fun. Good keyword.
So just to kind of highlight what actually happened, and the topic that we chose was specific because it was very technical, very specific. If you tried to write this article yourself, like if this was an assignment at school or something, you'd probably take at least a week to do the research, and then you'd probably still be wrong. So it's and that's kind of the highlight of why AI is so good, especially for marketers, because we're not experts at defense contractor RFP requirement creation, and we end up just doing research just like AI did, except AI did it 1,000 times faster. And and again, back to the complex topic, if we just did how to take care of a cat or something, then that wouldn't be as impressive as what was just done. And this is the second time. Like I said, the last time it was the DEI. What was the topic? It was like how companies could effectively
incorporate
implement DEI.
Yes, in their businesses.
And I actually have a nonprofit about inclusion, and I have a degree in HR, and I probably still won't be able to write the article that I wrote on that subject, which is interesting.
It's kind of sad to admit that, right?
Yeah, things change,
It's
HR is
true.
boring.
Yes.
I'm not going to study that anymore.
I just take so much pride in all of my writing skills, and I'm like, there's a better writer, and it's not even a human.
Well, it's not even that, because if you were an expert, like if you loaded your mind with 1 million pieces of data and then you access them and incorporate your own personality into it, yeah, you could probably generate a better article, or you could use this machine that takes 2 seconds. That's the other option.
Choose the latter. That's why I work for them. And I used to say, oh, I hate AI. Mark knows.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. We don't have too much time for another question. Just so
I got
everybody knows
one.
Oh, sure.
Real
sure.
quick, from Steve, is there any specific deal for Content at Scale as a certified partner? So we are working on that. That's launching soon-ish. So Mark, maybe you'll have an answer because I think it'll go to you and Carrie. And then from there, I'm sure it'll go out to the CPs.
Yes. Yeah, that'll probably be, we'll just post it on the Facebook group for Certified Partner. Certified Partner, in case anybody doesn't know what that is, we have a partner program where you could essentially license digital marketers IP and then use our sales systems to build your agency, and they get access to special stuff.
So it's coming, Steve. It's definitely coming. Good question.
And that was Content at Scale. And so this is one of the only sessions where we've utilized a paid solution. And just so everybody knows, you don't hire Content at Scale to actually make the data. You get access to Content at Scale, and then you do the writing, just using the process that Julia showed you. So input a few fields, spits out an answer in 5 minutes, problem solved. But we did have Julia incorporate ChatGPT as well, because you can generate articles. Like I wrote a book 2 weeks ago in about 45 minutes using ChatGPT, and it's decent. You know, it's not perfect, but I just put the word AI Mark DeGrasse in the author title, and then there you go, problem solved. Still good info.
Nice.
But I think so what we'll do, Julia, I'll go ahead and send you the, we have 5 minutes. You can answer a couple questions, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let's do, let's see. Oh, does the Content Scale generate content in Hungarian? So multilingual.
So it supports 100 different languages, and I'm not sure if that's one of them. So the answer is I would need to check with the team. You can also just start a ticket on the homepage, lower right-hand side with that circle, and just ask them. They'll get right back to you. But I can also get back to you in Slack. So I definitely need to check on that one.
Oh, good question.
That is.
Let's see. Andy asks, where are all of the craft goals hit in that intake, or whatever the framework was called?
I saw this in chat. Yeah, we could talk through that for a second.
Sure.
Cool. So let me share my screen in case anyone missed what that framework was. So it was an honor that someone called it the SMART framework, because that's probably the most famous framework in marketing. So thank you for that head nod. But this is something I just built a month ago. And yes, so something that we didn't show, right? And that's why I was asking Tony who would be the writer, and this is something he would follow to take that content and make it better. But with a tool like Content at Scale, what you're doing is you're cutting out like 7 hours of researching the acronyms, the meanings of those things, how to put it together in a 3,000 word blog. So Tony's work can go from 7 plus hours down to 1 hour, because you do want to incorporate this before you give it to the client or before you publish it on their site. So you want to cut the fluff, get rid of those repetitive sections, just ruthlessly cut and delete that. And then you want to go through and optimize it, make sure the keywords are in there. You want to add any images, media that needs to be added to it. Like, let's say we wanted to have a case study of a client, maybe they had results. We can include that as an image or a video, even a YouTube embed. And then you just want to fact check, which is something we did do with Tony. I was having him read and double check those facts, and he was able to tell us a lot of them were correct. So fact check everything and then link to the things that are cited. Like, for example, a 2023 study says that 80% of people check their cell phones every 5 minutes. So link that up to the study. And then trust building, that's adding story. And then additionally, your links, whether that's to booking a call page or an external study. And then that's your tone of voice and anything specific to you, your story, how you would say or write something. So that's something we didn't show, right? That's about an hour putting this process into your process. But the goal is to just save dramatic amounts of time on that rough draft stage, but you're not going to publish straight from AI. You're always going to go through that process of making it better.
Well, that's an excellent point, Julia, too, because I think a lot of people are concerned, like, is it even necessary to do content marketing anymore? Because we have, AI to write these awesome articles in 10 seconds. But the fact of the matter is that that's AI's answer. It's not your answer. And so if you have a defined target market or customer avatar, like we teach at Digital Marketer, you're writing for that specific person. And there's no way that you could even input enough information in order to have AI necessarily do that, talk to that one specific person. And so our job as marketers is to, tailor the information to that avatar for the specific company that's delivering the information. So AI can't do that right now. Like I said, I think eventually if you had an entire database of data, then it'll do it right, but you still have to be involved, and your answer is your answer, and if you're not answering it, if you're not answering questions that your customers are asking, somebody else is, whether that's a competitor or whether it's AI or whatever else it is, you're not answering that question. So how can you expect people to come to you, as the authority if you're not being the authority? So you still have to generate content. Long answer for that.
That's good.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're wrapping up time, so we will take the rest of your questions and address them in the Slack group. There's quite a few on this one. This was a question-packed session, but Julia's a master of answering questions, so I'm not too worried about it.
I am
We will have
definitely a
her
nerd.
address it there. Thank you so much, Julia. This was fascinating as always. Generated another long-form, amazing piece of content. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Yes. So Julia E. McCoy, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, definitely connect. I'll connect back. Love to chat about all things AI content. Didn't love to chat about this 2 months ago. So but my Instagram, what I share on my feed has definitely changed a lot. And thank you so much for being here. It really makes a good session when you have good people. So, and thank you,
Awesome.
Mark, for facilitating this and the whole team at Digital Marketer.
No problem. That is our favorite. And we love this interaction with the community. I think what makes Digital Marketer different from other communities is we actually listen to you guys and do everything that you ask as much as we can. And we rely on you, because we teach marketing, but we aren't doing marketing necessarily other than our own. So we have to go with outside experts like Julia, James, and everybody else who's been in here. And we really appreciate all of your involvement because you all have potential to be digital marketer authors if you just try. I'm always up for it.
You gotta publish my article, Mark.
Oh, I know. It's on the list. It's going up
I
really
know.
quickly. Couple notes just to wrap us up. We do have a review form, which I'll have Michelle post a link to. So if you want to rate any of these, Julia's, James, Scott's, anybody who's presented, go ahead and use that form and just, any reviews, good and bad, we really appreciate. We take them to heart. And they do impact everything that we do. So keep it up. Also, if you do use Content at Scale, or if you use ChatGPT to write a long form article, we would love to see it and share it and give your reviews on it. So make sure you post that in the Show Your Work channel on our Slack channel. Also, this call is going to be available in 24 hours, so look for that. And get ready for Wednesday when we have, I believe it's Molly. Is Molly here? Molly.
Oh.
Yes, Molly is here to talk more content generation, and she is a
She's
dynamo.
good.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. That will be Wednesday, 2:30 Central. So tune in then, and we'll keep you guys updated.
Awesome. This was fun. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Thank you so much, Julia.
Bye. Thank you, Mark.